Hey there guys, Kieran here with another episode of Kieran's Movie Space, the podcast where I talk about the latest movies and TV shows, and in this episode I'm going to be reviewing Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is the sequel to Ant-Man and the latest installment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As a massive fan of the MCU, I actually really enjoyed the first Ant-Man movie. I think it's got a lot going for it. It's fun, it's quick, and it's enjoyable, and I just rewatched it the other day before I saw this one, and there's still a lot of stuff that I really enjoy about that movie. So it's fair to say that I was a little bit excited walking into the cinema to see this, and I walked out genuinely surprised and genuinely happy with Ant-Man and the Wasp. This film is exactly what I wanted from an Ant-Man sequel. It's fun, it's bright, it's weird, and it's a really enjoyable movie. I'm going to try to not compare it to the first one too much, just because I've seen Ant-Man a few times, and I've only seen Ant-Man and the Wasp once so far, but overall I think Ant-Man and the Wasp is just as good, if not slightly better, than its predecessor. And I think the main reason this film works is that Peyton has done an incredible job with these characters. Obviously we've seen Ant-Man in action before, but in this film we get to know him a little bit better. We get to see him as a father, we get to see him as he's trying to get his life back together, and Scott really starts to feel like an authentic person that you could run into at the supermarket, which is something that I don't think you could say about Tony Stark or about Captain America. And then there's the Wasp, who gets the perfect introduction in this film. Even though I loved that first Ant-Man movie, I was a little bit bummed that we didn't get to see Hope in the suit, but this film delivers everything we've waited years to see. The Wasp is absolutely the highlight of the film. Evangeline Lilly steals the show and gives us a strong, funny, and really entertaining female superhero. I think it would have been quite easy for the introduction of this character to kind of fall flat, but they've done such a great job of making the Wasp different and giving her a unique personality that she stands out as one of the more interesting characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And as great as these two are as individual characters, they work 100 times better as a pair. Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly have excellent chemistry, and the dynamic between Scott and Hope is so fun to watch. It'll definitely be interesting to see how these two interact with the Avengers, if or when that day eventually comes. Ant-Man and the Wasp also introduces a new villain, Ghost, who is played by John-Kamen, and Ghost is what I would call a serviceable villain. You shouldn't walk into the cinema expecting to get another Thanos or another Killmonger, because you're not going to get that. But I think Ghost works for the story, and she serves the characters really well. The design of the character is excellent, and the special effects that bring Ghost to life look fantastic, and I actually think that John-Kamen gave a good performance, but the story and the script didn't develop that character nearly enough to make her a great villain. Another thing that I think works really well in Ant-Man and the Wasp is the tone. This has such a light and such a fun tone. There's nothing too dark or too serious, and it's just fun from beginning to end, which is what I think most of us needed after Avengers Infinity War and the depressing conclusion of that movie. The film also has a surprising amount of heart. It's hilarious and it's action-packed, but it's also really warm, and a lot of that warmth comes from the relationship between characters, especially the father-daughter relationship between Scott and Cassie, which was easily my favourite part of the entire film. The way they build Scott's relationship with his daughter is really fun to watch, and again, it just feels so authentic, and you believe that that is his daughter, and the young actress Ryder Fortson does a wonderful job as Cassie in this film. When the first film came out, there was obviously a lot of hype surrounding the visual effects and the way that Peyton showed these tiny characters in action, and I think when it comes to the action and the shrinking in this one, Marvel has upped its game and given us something really fun and something really different to watch. There's a scene that was in one of the trailers where the Wasp is fighting a couple of guys in the kitchen and she's like dodging knives and stuff, and just the way that the action scene flowed was really impressive, because she's going from small to big throughout that sequence, but it's still easy to follow, you never get lost, and that was just one of a few great action scenes in this film. I was surprised to see how little this film actually connected to the rest of the MCU, and I loved that. Like I already said, I love this franchise and the connected universe really works for me, but after Infinity War, I've got to admit that it was fun to sit down and watch a film that was just a standalone adventure. This is a direct sequel to Ant-Man, and it only makes a few tiny references to other films. I really liked that about this film, but for those of you that might be looking for some connections and might be looking for those references, they do give us something pretty big in the post-credits scene, so I think everyone will be pretty happy walking out of the cinema. So now I'm going to move on and talk about some of the issues I had with the film, and I think the biggest problem with Ant-Man and the Wasp is that they've decided to add this secondary villain, which is Walton Goggins' character, and he just didn't work for me at all. Don't get me wrong, Walton Goggins is fine in the movie, he's a great actor, and there's nothing wrong with his performance, but as a character, I don't think he was really necessary to the story, and the film would have been much cleaner and it would have flowed better without him in there. I'll also say that at points the film is kind of predictable, there's never a moment where you're wondering what might happen next or anything like that, and it never feels like the heroes are gonna lose. So I will say that the film isn't exactly surprising, and nothing really happens that blows your mind, but that never really takes away from the fun of the film, and this movie is a lot of fun. Overall, I think Ant-Man and the Wasp is a great sequel, it's funny, it's action-packed, the story has a surprising amount of heart, and I really enjoyed its ability to tell a standalone story that developed these characters and introduced a few new faces to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. To give Ant-Man and the Wasp a score out of 10, I think I'm going to go with an 8. Like I said, I did have a few small issues with the supporting characters, and the story was a bit predictable, but I had a lot of fun with this movie, and the characters were perfectly developed, so yeah, it deserves a solid 8 from me. And with that score comes the end of my review. Let me know what you thought of Ant-Man and the Wasp in the comments section below. If you're listening on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up button, and I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. For now though, that's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and I guess I'll see you next time.